Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series. Here's book 2. Here's book 3 about modal and modern jazz. But I also wrote Playing Solo Jazz Piano, which is this one, and Solo Standards for Piano. But it's not the content of any of those books I want to show you today. It's actually mostly related to this first book and about where I want you to get by the end of that first book in terms of improvisation. And I want to show you, in particular, how to create a kind of a script or a scheme to improvise over a tune to hopefully make it feel less intimidating. Okay, so we're going to look at the tune Ladybird, a great tune for beginners because we're totally in major keys. Now, let me just play this for you if you've never heard this tune before. It's also kind of a useful tune because it is the same chord changes as a more complicated Miles Davis tune called Half Nelson. And before anybody writes me hate mail, Miles Davis might not have written it. He claimed to write a lot of tunes that he did not write, so maybe he wrote Half Nelson, maybe he did it. But here's Ladybird. So that's the whole thing. It's also nice because it's only 16 bars. You might have heard of this referred to as the Ladybird turnaround. This is kind of a famous progression in jazz. So now for a beginner or somebody in their first 6 months of study, this might look intimidating. And it can be intimidating, but I want to talk through a plan that can make it less intimidating. So the basics of the plan are going to be when we have a long time on a major chord, we're going to simply improvise using the major scale. Okay? So let's use green for the major scale. We're going to improvise using the C major scale in these two parts. Ugh, that is a terribly not straight line. That's a little bit better. And then we're going to improvise using the A flat major scale here. And so when I say improvise using the major scale, that could be just about anything. But one thing I do want to get to is phrasing. And for now, I want to end phrases somewhere kind of in the middle of that second measure so that we have a couple beats of rest to prepare for some new chords. And just to make sure that we have rests built into this solo. So if I'm using the C major scale, and I'll let you see what I'm playing. I'm playing, then I have a little bit of rest. 3, 4. Okay. So remember that improvising with a scale for beginners, that doesn't mean we have to play from note to note in the scale, right? We don't have to play C follows to G, follows to E, follows to F. We can skip within that scale. And in fact, we're going to make a lot more interesting music if we do skip within that scale. Some people will be asking, what am I playing in my left hand? So the answer is that I am playing 3-note shells. But the more important answer is that if you're at around this level, I would not recommend that you try to coordinate your left hand with improvising in the right. I would really recommend that you practice with a backing track like one from iReal Pro. Highly recommend. Okay, so when we're chilling on these major chords, we're going to just improvise using that major scale. Very easy in C. You might have to practice the A flat a little bit more, but we're going to rest for the last couple beats regardless. Now, when we get to these other places, these are 2 5s in many cases or 2 5 1s. Some of them have the one chord, some of them do unexpected things. And what I want you guys to do is we're going to do 3 5 7 9 arpeggios, but there's one wrinkle, which is that when we get to the dominant 7th chord, we're going to do the 3 5 7 9 of the tritone sub. Okay. Now, I can link you to videos of the tritone sub, but the short explanation of the tritone sub is that when we have a dominant chord, only dominant chords, we can replace it with the dominant chord, a tritone, which is an augmented fourth or a flat fifth away. So instead of B flat 7, we're going to use the 3, 5, 7, 9 of E7. And I can go on and on about why that works, but for now, that's not the most important thing. I just need you to trust me. Because this is going to give us beautiful altered tones to make us sound like jazz musicians who know what we're doing. So now we're going to use arpeggios using the 3, 5, 7, 9. And so basically you're going to have these 4 notes to improvise with, and I'll show you some different ways to do that, some tricks. So it's going to be like A flat, C, E flat, G. See how that's really nice and colorful against the B flat 7? And by the way, I would absolutely write this stuff out. There's no shame, especially as you're in your first few years of learning, in writing some things out onto the chart. Whatever you can do. Improvising is hard. So whatever you can do to make it a little bit more fun and pleasurable for yourself, that is great. I have A flat, B, and E flat. Okay. So when we get to these portions, like let's say F minor 7 to B flat 7 or / E7, right? Those are tritone subs for one another. What I want you to do is skip between notes of these arpeggios and try to connect between those 2 bars. This is the hardest part for most people. Don't pick your hand up and go, just do 2 totally different improvisations. Your goal is to connect these. So notice I didn't use every note of the second chord. I only used the top 2 notes. I could have gone on, but it seemed like that was enough. So your real goal is to figure out a phrase, practice making some phrases, and practice is the key word here. You can get better at this, that traverse the bar line. Bar lines are just there for musicians to help musicians read. They're not there for us to hear them. So So notice I'm mostly just going down and up the arpeggios. I'm not doing anything too fancy. Alright, so these are all examples of ways I'm playing with just those 4 notes on each chord, creating a longer phrase. If you are just dying for more color and that's boring, then you could absolutely add chromatic lower neighbors, the notes just a half step below each of these notes. So for instance, instead of just playing, cool, that's great that doesn't work. I'm thrilled about that. We'll do it another way. Instead of playing just G, E flat, C, A flat, we could add an F sharp to ornament the G. Instead of playing just F sharp, I played F sharp. If you're ready. Okay. So now we've got everything except for the last 2 bars. And so we want to end on C major here. But this is a pretty tough section, right? And this is unusual in jazz where you see a lot of 2-5-1s. So one thing that we can do here is we can find common tones between these scales. So I'm asking myself, what are some notes that are in common between these 3 scales? And if you understand the circle of fifths, you know that these chords are related by fifth. And when we have chords in the circle of fifths, they're going to have a lot of notes in common. So E flat is a common tone for sure. F is in all of these major scales. B flat is in all these major scales. C is in all these major scales. And let's see, just those 4. I think maybe just those 4. Feel free to write to me if I missed one. I'll tell you a secret. G isn't in the D flat major scale, but we actually can use it as well. And so this actually, if you want to include that secret note, this forms the E flat pentatonic scale. And this is where I would start with your improvising is using the 5 notes of the E flat pentatonic scale, because now you don't have to change scales, you know, during these 3 chords. Okay. So the E flat pentatonic scale is literally these 5 notes that I just wrote down, if you can read it. E flat, F, G, B flat, and C. All right, so now we've got a plan. And so I'm going to improvise with the scales in the green. I'm going to improvise with these given arpeggios in the red. And then I'm going to use that C pentatonic scale for that Ladybird turnaround. So let's, and I've got my rests built in too, right? I've got my rests here, so I'm not going to be playing all the time with no break. That's crucial. Let's see how this goes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my rest. C major scale, arpeggio, another rest. I'm using a chromatic lowering. Pentatonic scale. Let's do another one. Here's C major again. Let's pause. All right, I think I did pretty well. One of the arpeggio sections I didn't connect. So slap on the wrist. Now, I wouldn't expect to be able to do this immediately, right? How do you practice? I might take 4 bars at a time. You guys hopefully are aware that if you use iReal Pro, this isn't sponsored by iReal Pro or anything, it's just a good tool. If you press and hold, then you get a highlight, and you can play that same section through and it will repeat on a loop. So I recommend that you practice, for instance, just 4 measures at a time so that you can get those transitions, right? I know that you guys can play C major scales. I know that you can play these arpeggios when you practice them, but it's transitioning from one to the other that's hard and that you need to just really reinforce. So let's try one more chorus so you have one more example. Here you go, starting with the C major scale, 2, 3, scale. Arpeggio. Scale, arpeggio, arpeggio. I connected into the arpeggio. And then I close with that that E flat pentatonic. It's the same as the C minor pentatonic if you know your theory. So if this seems useful to you, this is the kind of stuff you're going to get in Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1 about improvising. We're going to be making a plan with some of these simple components and then executing it. And the goal, the dream is for you to be able to create your own plans for just about any tune. So I hope that you find this useful and that you continue improvising. And I put in mind of an anagram? No. What's it called when you have a phrase that goes the same backwards and forwards? Somebody tell me in comments. But there's one that's a man, a plan, Panama Canal. Is that right? I don't think it's right. But give me your favorite, whatever that is called. A sneaky fox jumps something. Wow, I'm really floundering here. So I'm going to end this video. But thank you for watching. Give me your favorite anagram or whatever it's actually called. Bye.